partners in crime, Kristen Perry Long and Andy Bernstein. Hi, guys.
Hello.
We're just going to do a quick check-in today because we have 3 guests on the show who have a lot to say. So let's get right to it. How are you guys doing, Chris?
I'm doing okay. Getting on that schedule is really, really important. I keep reading it, and I got to practice it. So I'm trying to really stay on a schedule, which is helping my mind not be so anxious. So I'm doing better.
Good. Glad to hear that. Mr. Bernstein?
So you know what? I felt like I cheated yesterday.
Ruh-roh.
So I've been working on it. So I've been up and down the last month. I'm sure a lot of people have been feeling the same way. Good days, bad days, whatever. So I went out yesterday, social distanced, but I went with my friend Bernie. We went to a meeting, a closed door meeting at a store that we're trying, a location that we're trying to do something with. And I had the best day of my past month. Felt normal.
Great. Yay.
And it was actually a sports memorabilia shop, and I was like a kid in a candy store. I had a blast, and I left, and I'm like, God, I feel hope. I feel hope today. Wow, it was normal. And so actually bought a box of baseball cards. I bought 3 of them, like when I was a little kid. And I sat there opening packs because that's what I used to do when I was a little kid. And if I were like upset or things like that. So my wife and I actually started opening the packs of cards. She didn't know what she was doing, but I was like, okay, what do you got? And I started putting all the cards aside. And it was great. It was so cathartic for me yesterday. So today I'm a little manic, but I'm feeling good.
Good. A little manic.
I am a little manic.
Good.
We're waiting for, here she is on cue. Hello, Senator. Can't hear you. Oh, she's connecting.
Oh, there she is.
Hello, Senator.
Hi, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you for.
9:30 and it's already been crazy.
Oh, I'm sure. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
You have a whole. This is like Hollywood Squares. You have Kimberly.
Hi, Kimberly.
Have
Hi.
Chris. You have
Hi.
Beth. And you have Charles. And Charles is actually world famous. He's actually in Logan Airport talking about mental health.
Oh.
With the program with McLean Hospital.
Oh, great. Hi, Charles. You're in Logan Airport?
Yeah, I have a 9-foot mural between gates B and C.
Oh. Wow.
Telling his story. It's pretty cool.
That's great.
I'm in Philadelphia right now because I know you're from Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm at the art museum. I got my Phillies hat on.
I see.
Really not.
In Philadelphia.
What's that?
How are things in Philadelphia?
Oh, it's great. South Philly, going to Pat's and Geno's,
Yeah.
So really excited to have you on. We obviously, we did this show about mental health and addiction, and we've actually talked about the recent bill that has been passed. And so I thought it would be great to hear it from you directly about the latest bill around mental health and kind of the particulars. You're obviously a state senator. You represent the 4th Middlesex District, which includes Arlington, Billerica, Burlington, and Lexington, and you have been a huge mental health advocate. So we thought it would be great to have you on and appropriate to talk about the recent bill that was passed and how it can help people and what it entails. So
great.
Okay.
All right. So I'm just trying to get to a place where my internet stops fading out. Okay. Hope this is better. So, so we, the bill, I think the biggest piece of this bill is that it puts teeth into the parity laws that are the law of both the federal law and the state law. And we've had parity laws on the books that require that mental health be treated equally as med-surg. And in fact, that hasn't happened. And part of the reason why I think it hasn't happened is because there's been a lot of self-reporting going on. So, an insurer or carrier says, yes, we are compliant with the law. When in fact, we know that that's not true. And you see it in how restrictive the pre-authorizations are for mental health, how much utilization review goes on, if you look at the provider networks, how are they adequate or not adequate? And you see all of the inequities. Those are some of the places where they really come out. So this bill has what this bill does is it sets very, very strict requirements from both the carriers, the insurers, and the Department of Insurance to oversee whether, in fact, the parity laws are being followed. So that is a big, big piece of this bill. Another big piece of it, which is unfortunate that we have to actually legislate this, but there's no pre-authorization for acute treatment. So if you come into a hospital and you require immediate acute treatment for a mental health condition, then this bill takes away any pre-authorization that has to be done, and it allows the decision to be made between the provider and the patient. There are some other pieces. There's some education pieces where there would be a kind of mental health campaign talking about mental health, focusing on the stigma and trying to reduce the stigma.
Okay.
And then there's some education to get people into the workforce, the pilot program for bringing more workers into the workforce for mental health.
Chris was nodding her head.
What?
Can't hear you. Chris?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself.
Good, thank God.
I think it's really important. And I know this passed, correct?
Passed in the Senate.
Yep. So if it does pass and becomes law, right? How fast will it actually be accepted into the system, I guess you could say? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Well, so of course it will take some time because a lot of this is reporting, right? A lot of this is we have to now set up the insurers and the and DOI to start to get this information. But it shouldn't take too long to start. I mean, usually bills are start in 60 days unless there's a preamble, emergency preamble. So I think we'll start to see it. Now, the pre-authorization will start as soon as the bill goes into law. So some of it will happen right away, and some of it is going to be over time because there's going to be these reporting requirements.
So on the long end of it, so when we Section 12 somebody, right, it's supposed to be a 72-hour mandated evaluation, hold, whatever you want to call it. And then when they say, you know what, you need that further care, and sometimes you're put in against your will, and sometimes you go in willingly, the length of time that people get for mental health stabilization, and this is why part of the reason why we have Beth and Charles today, because their stories are kind of the revolving door of how their mental health was treated. It was a quick fix. Here's a pill. Let me know how it works out for you. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Is this bill going to change any of that?
Well, it may change it. Okay, indirectly, it may change that. Okay, it doesn't directly talk about that. But if you're not following the protocols for treatment, so if you say, well, for this med surg particular issue, we are following the protocols, and they have to do that. And if on the behavioral health side there's a protocol that they're not following, they are out of parity, right? You can't hold those two different things. If those are benefits that you provide, you can't have two different ways of setting a standard. Okay. So in that regard, if the standard is, for a med surge for cardiac, we are following this set of protocol, these standards of care. And for this particular mental health condition, here are the standards of care, but we're not following them. That won't fly. That to me you are out of compliance, and that you're not allowed to do. So to that extent, and having the transparency of how those things are set and how those decisions are made will help what you're talking about. But it's not a direct hit on that, on that. And some insurance companies don't provide certain benefits. So if they're not providing the benefits, there's no standard that they have to follow. We're not requiring people to have a benefit. I would like to do that. So this is a start. It's not the whole
Kit and
thing.
caboodle.
There's so much to do, but this is a place to start, because at least we'll have transparency around what insurance companies are doing.
I have a question. When we talk about different treatment, different mental illness, and obviously mental illness is a broad scope.
Right.
So what are some of the key things that this, what falls in under mental illness? Can you kind of share? Is it dual diagnosis? Is it addiction? What kind of things are going to be able to be covered under the mental health umbrella?
Okay, so mental health to me is mental illness. Okay, so it's including, anxiety, depression, psychosis. Behavioral health is, and then there's substance use disorder, which is alcohol, drugs, and those two pieces, mental health and substance use disorder, in my mind, make the world of behavioral health. Okay. So one of those that, so there, it's just, but what I worry about and why I talk directly about mental health is because what I think has happened over the past several years is substance use disorder has consumed the discussion, and it's incredibly important. But there's also mental illness, and that is separate. They are certainly coexist with each other. They are really important. One leads to something, but I really want to make sure that mental illness, the treatment of mental illness, does not get kind of consumed by all the work we're doing around substance use disorder. Because there's lots of people that have a mental illness, and they're not suffering from substance use disorder.
Got it. Charles?
Yes. So why did the bill come in effect? In a sense of what you just talked about with the behavioral and the mental, like I'm dual diagnosis. So I feel like it should have been set forth with both involved. I know you just said it coexists, but more that the bill needs to be focused on both.
So we've done a lot of work around substance use disorder. For instance, a really good example is when in our last the bill I worked on last year, which was a substance use disorder bill, we took away the requirement for pre-authorization. So if you come into an emergency room and you are suffering from a substance use disorder or overdose or whatever, and you need immediate acute treatment, that happens without the insurance company being involved. If you come in suffering from a psychotic episode, then I, as your provider, I have to call the insurance company. I have to get an okay for me to send you to inpatient treatment. That is not parity, right? So this bill, we have a lot of things in place for substance use disorder, and this bill says that if you are providing treatment for behavioral health in the person's plan and med surge, those two things have to be equal. There has to be parity. So we're not leaving out substance use disorder. We've done a whole lot of work on that, and
Okay.
those protections are in place.
All right. So now I have a question. Okay. So let's fast forward now. We're into COVID. We just talked about this on our Wednesday edition that, they're predicting that there's going to be more of an outbreak right now in mental health, given people are losing their jobs, isolation, which obviously isn't good for people, suffering. You need that contact. Is there anything specifically now in the works around the current situation, or will there be anything in the works?
We have started to look at this. And in fact, last week we had a very long conversation with the commissioner of DMH, Department of Mental Health. And we started out very early on talking with the substance use disorder community, because there were a number of things that came out through the federal government, some of the relaxation of some of medical prescribing around methadone. And we did some work around ensuring that people could get their prescriptions, like for Suboxone, without having to go directly to their doctor. I mean, we did a number of things in that space to at least make it possible for people to continue to at least get the medication that they're on, right?
Okay.
We are really, really worried about a behavioral health surge. And so what we've done is started to look at what areas do we need to focus on so that we're ready for the surge. And
Right.
one of the areas that we are most concerned about is the community health venues, right? So many people go from, a subacute treatment center or subacute care to a step down, which is in the community. And those are
Okay.
the programs that have been affected the most by this pandemic, because nobody, as you know, I'm telling you all things you know, they can't show up. They're also hard to find, those people, because they don't often talk on the phone, or telehealth is not something that is immediately available to them. And so how do we ensure that we're keeping that contact for people when they're in the community and when they're more isolated? So that's what we're focusing on, are those programs. And some of those programs are closing because they're not getting they're not receiving any money, because they're not billing, right? So they're shutting down. So that's what we're looking at, is what do we need to shore up or make sure is in place so that people start to get treatment? Because you all know, if you don't get treatment, you're going to decompensate, and we're going to have a much bigger problem on our hands than we do right now. Right now, people are not showing up to the ED.
Right. Right.
Coming for treatment because they're afraid, and I don't blame them. But we are starting to see it with children.
Good.
We're starting to see families showing up in the ED with children who have not been getting treated because of the pandemic, and the families they're starting to crack.
I'm sure, Chris, you were.
I mean, I can speak firsthand to that. I mean, I'm raising my grandchildren, and I'm a recovery coach as well. And my phone's constantly ringing, talking to a lot of people. My granddaughter is suffering from anxiety. Like, she's 11. She was somebody that played soccer, played lacrosse, had friends. She already had those underlying self-esteem issues because she's being raised by her grandparents. Her mom's now back in her picture, which is great. But to all of a sudden rip it all away has been devastating for her. And it's making all of us crazy because we can't help her. And we've called the pediatrician, and I won't even tell you what the pediatrician recommended, but I'm concerned not only for the older generation, the 30s, the 20s. I'm concerned about the kids that are going to finally get back into society, and we're going to have to learn a whole new normal It's just, there's so many levels to this. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And that's why we're starting with that's why we're focusing on the community side.
Yep.
Try and get care to people before it becomes acute. But it's going to be a real uphill battle. I mean, if we don't get the feds to help us, I don't know how we're going to get out of this, because the cost is enormous and we don't have the funds to pay for it, and we need to do the work. So
I was reading SAMHSA has a 900% call increase, which is the substance abuse, mental health services administration.
Yep.
And they're having a 900% increase. And so obviously it's a problem. I actually had one more question for you. When you talk about, obviously we have healthcare workers on the front lines who are, I'm imagining are experiencing PTSD and a lot of different things that they're going through right now. Are there things available to healthcare workers who may be going through some stuff right now?
I'm not sure. I do know that a lot of the hospitals have started doing more, call it mental health outreach to their workers, because they are worried about people being, PTSD. So I know that's happening, but I don't know about it on any formal level.
Okay.
I'd have to find out.
Okay.
So,
if people want to learn more about the bill or contact you.
Yes, you can contact me at cindy.friedman at masenate.gov, all one word. And also you can go to my website, cindyfriedman.org.
Okay.
And I think it's /mental health ABC, capital A, capital B, capital C. But if you go to the website, you'll be able to find it. cindyfriedman.
You're the best. Thank you so
guys
much.
are great. I'm so glad you care about this. And Charles, it was great to meet you. I hope you get out of the airport soon. And
will you come back on again?
Yeah, anytime.
You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome to stick around if you want. I mean, I'm sure you're busy, but we'd love to have you.
I would love to go, but I have a 10 o'clock conference call, so I'm going to run.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Stay safe, Senator.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you. There you have it. State Senator Cindy Friedman. One of my favorites. She's great. Is she not the best?
She's awesome.
So I was thinking about it a little bit, and I think this bill is kind of obviously it's the scratch of the surface as to how they're gonna, it's not molded yet. They don't know. It's gonna be a work in progress. Charles, did you feel like your question was answered?
Yes.
Good.
I didn't know about the behavioral health bill.
Working at it.
The substance abuse bill.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to challenge her on that one, but because people can't just walk in and be like, I need help, because if there's no beds, there's no beds. Right. But we weren't going to go there today.
Yeah. Don't be challenging, my friend.
Be challenging.
Yeah.
Be challenging.
Yeah.
Please. We want her to come back.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Okay, so Chris, Kimberly, we're gonna have a round table here, or a square table, whatever you want to call it, between Charles and Beth, and a discussion. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Chris and Kimberly, and we'll go.
All right. Thanks, Andy. So, like Andy said, we've got Beth Stark and Charles King with us. These are two of our favorite guests. Who have already been on the map. So Chris had the idea to bring both of them back on the show together and let them speak to their experiences about what they've gone through with each other, and kind of talk about the similarities and the differences between what they experience coping with their respective challenges. So welcome back to the show, you guys.
Thank you.
So who wants to start? Charles, you start.
This is like, what is this, Match.com? Like, we're like...
Well, the Wait, before we get going, the funny part was, right, I messaged Charles. I'm like, Charles, would you be willing to come on and talk to Beth about your experiences and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, but it'll be really hard. And I'm like, why? And he goes, well, you know, with the 2 kids. I'm like, oh, not your wife, Beth.
Oh, that's funny.
It was funny. I didn't even put 2 and 2 together. So, yeah, I mean, banter with each other. That's the whole point of it, is like, did this happen to you? And share with us how you guys got where you are now today, and the importance of the people that helped you, how you advocated, and so on and so forth.
I mean, first and foremost, to everybody, and especially Beth, how are you dealing with your mental illness through this COVID?
This has been hard. I actually was I have therapy Friday mornings at 8, and so I drive around and do therapy because I have a 4.5-year-old. And I have a couple thoughts on it. In the beginning, I felt like I was in a constant state of like some sort of elevated, not mania, but like definitely kind of elevated. I was having a really hard time concentrating. Thinking straight wasn't really there. Not that that's particularly back, but how many weeks are we in now? 5, 6?
5, 6.
5, 6, yeah. Now I feel like we have a better rhythm. Once they officially canceled school, I kind of decided to like change things around where my son and I live. Like his bedroom is now a classroom. I taught preschool for 10 years, so it's legitimately set up like a preschool classroom. And I've kind of taken the mantra that I learned in early recovery, embrace the suck, and I've embraced it. Like nothing is going to change tomorrow. I'm relying a lot more on podcasts. I'm reading a lot more for my personal benefit, things like Brene Brown, Glennon Doyle, and reaching out to my friends that have been my rock since I've been 13, or since, in the last 4 years, and kind of telling people that I'm overwhelmed. How are you handling it? You have 2 children, so I only have one.
And a new one. Congratulations.
Oh my God.
So yes, so my son was born the day the lockdown went in effect.
Oh my gosh. God love you.
So March 12th, I didn't know what really was going on. Like I'm in the hospital room. They said the hospital's closed off, no visitors. And then we leave the hospital and it's just like, you have to be quarantined for 2 weeks in the house, because I took vacation time and then I went back to work because I am an essential worker. So 16 days in the household, I was going insane because I'm an outgoing person. I need to be out and I need to see people. I need to talk to people. And then you have a newborn that's crying and not sleeping. So boom, I was already hit. So it's like, postpartum depression is already hitting me. And, thank God for the medications I'm already on to help me with that depression. Because, postpartum does hit both the mom and the father.
It does.
So it already hit me the first go around with my daughter, who's 2 right now. So I was prepared this time, but it's still like, if you ask me today how I'm doing, I'm doing okay. I mean, I've had better days. But it's just been being in the house and not going I have, I'm almost 4 years clean and sober. So not going to AA meetings or NA meetings. It's, they have the Zoom live, but it's not the same effect.
No.
It's, I feel bad for people in early recovery, because you can't just tell them like, oh, you have 30 days sobriety, go online and go talk to other people in recovery. And it's just like, they could still be sitting there using or abusing and things like that. So for me, I mean, I still have a network of like sponsors and sponsees, but it's still not the same because I can't see any physical contact with them. So
Right.
that's what's affecting me the most mentally. I suffer from bipolar 2. So my depression goes up and down, hypomania. 1 second I'm on top of the world, the next I'm just like, leave me alone. So
I got you. So it's
What does
interesting.
that look like? What does that look like when that, like how, like what
Yes.
triggers that?
Great
A
question.
sound,
Yeah,
like
A sound.
a sound.
no, it's
a
true.
sound. Yeah.
It's true. It's like
Yeah.
my son crying, like boom.
Mhm.
Like if
I
it's like like it's not like obviously yes a baby cries, but it's like if he's crying for like 10 minutes, boom, depression sets in.
Charles, what I think is interesting about that, first of all, is the part about being extrovert. I'm the same way. So I don't like any of this at all. Like fundamentally, like this is so challenging for me because I'm so used to being around people. And then also, one of the biggest learning curves for my family with getting my diagnosis was that sounds annoy me. Right.
Yes.
And they had to understand that I wasn't just like making it up. Like
exactly. I mean, I've never explained it to them, but I actually never explained that to my wife. But yeah, it's true.
Yeah, like ever since I was a small kid, I can remember certain sounds like really kind of like just doing something to me. And then as I got older, got the diagnosis, started learning about it, I was like, oh wait, that is a symptom of this. I'm not making that up. This is an actual thing.
Yeah. It's more like yelling and screaming because I was like, mentally and physically abused. So with that, like screaming, it's just like if you're like in the supermarket and you're like arguing with somebody, that's a trigger for me. Like it has nothing to do with me, but it sets me off.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Andy?
Yeah. Now on the flip side, what happens that makes you feel good? Like, are there certain key things that, like, for example, Beth, when you are with your son
Mhm.
and you're hanging with your son, you feel really good. Does that escalate from there? Like,
I don't think Philly has ever seen me manic. Well, not that he remembers. But I think that most of the stuff that he witnesses that might seem like more energetic are kind of within the scale of okay. Like the other day, like when I did the thing with the bedrooms, he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, we just need to have organization. Like we need to have structure in our lives. Because one of the things that I learned that was so useful for both the diagnosis of substance abuse and bipolar was I needed to have a schedule. This completely threw that out the window. Right? Like I can't get up and go like drop him off at school, go meet the people I meet for work, make sure I take 10 minutes, 15 minutes for myself to do that. I mean, I can take time for myself now somewhat, but he's with me a lot because schools are closed. And his dad's an
okay.
essential worker as well. So
Don't you find like too the whole time for myself? I have so much time for myself. I don't even have time to focus on what I want to do for myself. Does that make any sense at all? Like I sit down and I go to meditate and I don't even have anything to clear in my mind because my mind is so disconnected. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like I sit there and it's like, okay,
Disconnected from
life. Like I have my only responsibilities right now aren't I feel like I have no responsibilities. I feel
Are
like
you overwhelmed with time? Like overwhelmed with as much? Yeah. Yes.
do you know? I mean,
no, I don't understand.
I was like, I can't relate to this.
no, I know, but it's like I just like okay. There's only so many times I can rearrange my bedroom and clean it. You know what I mean? The refrigerator, the freezers are stocked. I don't have any motivation to cook because I've made more meals in the last 5 weeks than I've made in 5 years, like for variety. It's like, I don't know. You're kind of like when you get married, you're waiting for that day. And now that day comes and it's like that missing thing that you have that leads up to the whole wedding, all the preparation. Now there's nothing. I got nothing. I'm not working.
I think they're a little jealous of you, Chris, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys reach out to people a lot?
To who?
Like, to try to stay connected with people. What do you, right now, do you isolate? Are you isolating or do you find yourself isolating? Or are you really trying to reach out and stay in contact with people?
This is that question's hard for me because it's so hard to isolate when I'm so busy with 2 kids.
Right, but internally, you know what I mean?
Um,
Like, because you can isolate internally, even though on the external, like, do you find yourself present, or do you find yourself just kind of, thinking about, you know, maybe I wish I was like had time, to, you know, wish I had time to, you know, um, kind of be by myself. Do you feel like you find yourself wanting to create alone?
yes, and then when I'm in that stage, for me, I write. So that's a that's a positive for me, the isolation,
Okay.
uh, because I need to focus on my mental health.
So you try to find something more creative and try to find something more productive than a negative thoughts.
Exactly. Because with the isolation that you're talking about, I've gone down that dark road. So I try to, be positive and use something creative to take me out of that dark hole.
Okay. Beth, what do you think?
So this is interesting. I was saying this morning to my therapist, and it might be terrible to say, but one of the issues I'm having with this place and time is that when I feel like sometimes I'll want to be like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm so this, and then someone will remind me why I should be lucky. I know why I should be lucky. I am very lucky, but I think that I'm running into situations where people aren't allowing people to feel the feels, and that's what got me in trouble to begin with for my mental health. Like, no one just let me say what the problem was. So right now I'm trying to stay really on top of like who I reach out to, who I'm talking to, and then kind of constantly thinking about moving forward. Like, I'm finishing up school. I have 4 more weeks, then I have my bachelor's, which is awesome. And I'm applying to graduate school, and I'm trying to think of all the things that I want to like create for Philly and I going forward. And also feeling like I can say it's really hard.
And
Like,
be okay with saying that.
yeah, and not have
Chris,
someone be like, "Oh, but you should be so lucky." I'm well aware of how lucky I am. I never ever don't say I'm lucky, but I
Ag-
also am a human going through a human experience.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Chris and
Because I'm
Kimberly. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
because I'm I mean I'm also in school, Beth,
Oh,
nursing.
no way. We're like so much in common.
I go to nursing school at UMass Boston.
Good for you.
And I mean, that's another stressor on top of work full time, on top of 2
Yeah.
kids. And people are like, oh, I don't know how you do it. And I'm like, well, how did you do it? Like, don't say like, how do you know how? Don't say to me, I don't know how you do it, because we all have everyday struggles. And it's just how do you deal with them?
Yeah, exactly.
That's very true. That's very true.
I
Go
think
ahead, Chris.
I think what my problem is that I made my life so busy and I was so active and always on the go. It all got taken out. Like, it's all done. Like, I'm not busy. I'm not going and meeting with people. I'm still on my phone a lot. But do you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
you've got the busy of everyday home life, Charles, with the baby and everything. And you might not see it right now, but in a few years, it'll been like, oh my God, that was like so awesome to be able to have so much extra time with the baby. It goes by so fast, but I don't need to tell you that. I just think like, and Beth, you're busy with your little guy and scheduling and it's like, I think it's because of where I am in my life. It's, if I was where you guys were, I mean, my daughter's home, she's in recovery and she's doing her 3 kids that live here, with us. And we're doing it collaboratively, but I don't know. I mean, I get in my head. I don't know how to get out of my head. So any tips would be welcome.
So, Charles, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay, so I am kind of like Chris. I designed my life to be very, very busy, because the busier I was, I could kind of like disconnect from the swirl of my brain. This obviously made us all slow down. And then one of the things I noticed is I would have like, not episodes, because that's not the word, but like kind of like small little blips of like like thoughts in my head that I'm like, oh, I haven't had that in a while. And hasn't happened in a while. And I've been practicing a lot of like reality checking, talking back to thoughts, doing all the things that I learned how to do in like all the programs I was in. And then as I work as a recovery coach and a peer specialist, and a lot of people I support, have stuff like that happen. And I feel like I'm able to relate to them a little bit better right now because of the fact that I'm like, I understand that that's going on, because now we're all kind of forced to like sit.
Mm-hmm.
Are you noticing anything like that with you? I mean, you're so busy. You have a newborn.
You mean like relating with others, you mean, that are similar?
Or like, no, but like, it's like your brain chemistry, like type thing. Like, because I know you're so busy, but then there's also like, I feel like bipolar kind of like staying busy has been my jam.
Yeah, I think that's more, if my brain starts going the way you just described, then it's going to go down not a good path.
Okay.
So yeah, so do you have bipolar too?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh no, bipolar. I'm bipolar 1.
Okay.
Can you tell the difference? Can you share the difference real quick? But
Beth, there's only one major.
It's the depression, right?
It's depression. Not you, but bipolar 1 is more severe major depression episodes than bipolar 2.
Okay.
So Charles, how's that mood calendar been going?
So since January, if we just start at January to today, it's gone down. Like, so Beth, I had a calendar where every day you wake up, you start with a 5.
Okay.
And it's based on a scale 1 through 10.
Mm-hmm.
10 being like super ecstatic, manic, and 1 being suicidal, depressed. So every day you start off your calendar. Every day you wake up, you start off with a 5, and throughout the course of your day, that number goes up and down. And then before bedtime, you give a median number of your day. Does that make sense?
Oh.
It tracks your medicine, right?
That.
Right, Charles? It kind of tracks where you are with your meds and
where you are with your meds, where you are with your mental health. And then, so I could say like last night or yesterday, I ended my day with a 6. 6 is, it's a little above average. But today when I woke up, I started with a 5 again. So it's a new slate. It's like Groundhog's Day. So today I could end with an 8, but tomorrow I wake up with a 5 again, and then go so on and so on. So pretty much from January, I had a whole month. I think I had like 7.3 average. February was like a 7.1, and then March is when the COVID started. So I think I was like a 6.8. And then now I'm in the 6.8-ish. So it's like the COVID, baby, and the end of school year has definitely put a damper on my mood chart. It's still in that between 5 and 7 numbers. I don't see 1s and 10s.
It is a good thing, right?
Yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah. That's a good thing for me. Yeah. I think when my baby was born, I had a 9.
That's understandable.
I didn't want to go 10. But
awesome.
That's an awesome idea.
It's productive.
But yeah, I keep it on my fridge or my calendar at work. So yeah, I just have a little number in the corner of the box.
Do you guys finding speaking, like doing this kind of thing, I'm imagining when you first started doing it and you speaking out, it was probably very difficult, or at least hard. You both seem very comfortable in it. How does that help you right now with maintaining your sobriety and staying focused with mental health, with positive mental health and self-care?
Sorry, Charles, go.
I mean, for me, it's a sense, it's a hobby. It keeps my mental health in check, and I just love helping others. And I've said before in the podcast is I got addicted to helping others because I have an addictive personality. So I mean, it started off, you know, I mean, it's always still a good thing, but then it got down like, hey, you're helping out too many people. You're not focused on your home life.
Hmm.
And that got me in a sense of like, oh, let me take a step back. I can still help others, do podcasts,
Mm.
go around cities and states and share my story. And if just one pair of ears, connects with my story, it's like a feel good story to me. Like I made a difference in somebody's life today. And by making others feel good makes me feel good. And that's how I look at it from the mental health aspect.
What about you, Miss Beth?
I feel the same way. I think that Charles, I don't know what you know about my story, but a lot of mine's a lot of stuff triggered for me when I had my son and I had postpartum, and it went misdiagnosed. So I had a horrible couple of years, and to sit here today is is a miracle. So what I promised myself I would do a couple of years ago is I would use my story to help others, so that they, like us, particularly mothers, and now fathers with postpartum, that they wouldn't feel so alone. And it brings me a lot of joy, but I also open myself up to some scrutiny and some like opinions that really, I suppose, aren't for my ears anyway. But I love it. I mean, I feel like I'm getting better at it. I'm more comfortable in sharing my story, and I just think the bottom line is that if one mom or dad hears it and they know they're not alone, then I did something right with my story and my life. And I think of when my son's old enough, if he can see this stuff, hopefully he'll be really proud of me, and he'll know that I really fought to get strong and brave for him. And I hope that that'll help him carry on his legacy of just being a really good, kind little human being, because he is right now. And I think that the world's a better place for him being in it. And I hope that I give him bravery by doing this.
Absolutely. Beth, how do you deal with the stigma? Do you still feel like you face that as much as you did when you started your journey?
Not as much, but there's definitely. It's funny because like this isn't for everyone. Like what you guys do, and Charles, I'm sure you can agree. Like this kind of work isn't for everyone. I know a couple people that kind of roll their eyes at me and they're like, "Oh, okay, there she goes again." I don't have to do this for them. I'm doing it for the mom that's, has her baby's 8 months old and she's feeling like she's kind of losing her mind and she doesn't know why. When I first was getting sober and taking care of my mental health, I relied heavily on podcasts and listening to other women share their story. And it was different than 12-step programs. It was just something different about it. So I really, really, I listened to them on the way home to work, home from work. There was always a steady flow of inspiration in my car. And that was the one place where I could cry, sob, yell, do all the things that I couldn't do when I was under, in the middle of a custody dispute. I had to keep it together outside, but I could be safe in my car. And I wanted to pay that forward. I don't think I'm particularly that interesting. It's just that I hope that it's going to help somebody.
Absolutely.
Beth, you've accomplished some really cool stuff lately.
Yeah.
And you're such a great person because you're so humble, right? And you don't start crying. And
Yeah.
no, you're a great person. You really work hard. They always say, if you want to get well, get up and walk, right?
Yeah.
That's, because, God can't help you until you start helping yourself. Right.
Right.
I mean, that's the truth. And so for you do so much, right, to try to help yourself. And you've accomplished some stuff. Tell us about a couple of the quick accomplishments.
Well, Andy made an awesome video
Yay,
of my
Andy.
story. I am going to be on a podcast, Recovery Happy Hour, that I think is airing Tuesday, which I'm so nervous about because God
Cheating
knows
on
what I
us.
sounded like.
Cheating on us, but that's okay.
I know, I'm sorry. And
That's
then
okay.
I just won an essay contest at my school for an essay I wrote about welcoming people into your brave space. And graduation, 4 weeks.
And you're going to go to grad school.
Yes. And I'm I'm actually, Charles, I'm going to hopefully create my own little plan, but I want to study postpartum and the mood disorders that can come from it.
Nice.
Yeah, that's my goal.
And I want
Any
to
other
be
questions for
Wait.
everybody?
No, Charles, what, Charles?
no, I just wanted to be, my focus of nursing is child adolescence. My long-term goal is to work at Brigham and Women's psychiatric unit for adolescents.
Oh my God. Wow. You're so good. I couldn't do kids. Ugh.
That's where it starts, mental illness.
I know. I watch my son like a hawk. Like, I'll be like, wait a second. Did you count how many times you did that? Like, because I know when mine started, and I know certain things that happen, like things that I did when I was little. So I'm constantly like, because I'm going to catch it. If there is anything, I'm going to catch it early.
You can't catch it. Like people have already asked me, people already asked me, am I fearful of my two kids getting bipolar or having a mental illness? And I have no control over that.
No, but you can help them get care sooner.
True.
Like I didn't get my diagnosis until 38.
All right. 33 for me.
Yeah.
There you go. So
Okay.
Charles, it says you do motivational speaking. Who do you speak to and what venues?
So it's word of mouth. So when I did the podcast through McLean for the Deconstructing Stigma campaign, one of the women in that campaign knew a professor at St. Anna Maria College. And they were like, do you want to come speak at the university? And I was like, I was so nervous. I'm like, in front of the university? Like, I felt like it was like a graduation. So I spoke there last year. I speak locally for AA meetings, the whole substance abuse disorder and mental illness. So, I mean, it's just wherever people want me. It's like I said, it's word of mouth. If you guys know somebody that wants to hear me speak, then I'm all on board. And
we do.
Like that.
We love hearing you speak.
Or your contact info?
So I have a blog page, behindthelaughter.blog. People can find me on Facebook as Charles EU Banks King. And my cell phone number, 617-888-9195. Feel free to text me or call me. And I'm always helping and willing to help anyone struggling going through a bad time.
Hey, Charles, a question. Thank you. So you're in the airport, and we talked about it with the senator. You seriously are on a 9-foot billboard or a 9-foot poster. Tell us about that a little bit, about what the campaign is and how did that come about?
So the campaign is deconstructingstigma.org. And it's a campaign that focuses on mental illness. That's the main focus, from diagnosis from bipolar to substance abuse disorder to borderline personality disorder to sexual trauma, anxiety, depression. Anyone and everyone that has a story can email, first contact or email Gary, I forget his last name, Jerry at Deconstructing Stigma. And then they have a person call you, you tell your story, and then they have a writer of their campaign writes up your story, and then you have a photo shoot, and the next thing you know, you're in Logan Airport.
9 foot, like
life size.
Yeah, like in Ghostbusters when the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
The Marshmallow Man, yeah.
Just gigantic, right?
So no, it's not necessarily, obviously, you're not necessarily going to get into Logan Airport. It's actually international. It's an international campaign. So
really,
I was also possibly going to be in Ecuador International Airport. So
that's amazing.
Would that actually be?
Go ahead.
Would that be? Would they have subtitles with that?
It would be in Spanish or whatever country. It would be in any language wherever that country is. It would be translated.
That's so awesome! Congratulations.
So go ahead, Beth.
Charles, I wanted to tell you, not to cheat on the map, but look into thisismybrave.org. Have you heard of them?
I have not.
I'm a storyteller for them. And I'm actually doing a thing with them tomorrow for like Brave TV, but you should look into them. They do whatever. I'll email you about it, but look at it. And I wanted to give them a shout out because they're awesome.
We'll exchange contact.
Okay, awesome.
So here's my question. I don't know if you guys have any more questions, Chris and Kimberly, but here's my question. Do you guys ever feel called to do this? Do you feel like this is what I'm supposed to doing? Like, do you feel that, like, you know, whatever you get from the negative, or like Beth, you were saying, people say this and that, but do you ever feel like this is your purpose, like to be here and to be doing what you're doing?
1000%. It's about truth and honesty, and that's what I learned in AA. When you become truthful with yourself, you become truthful with others. So I have no qualms or backlash of telling the truth to others, because it's my life, and now I've set it free. So now I can help others that hold back that pain, that misery, that fear, the self-doubt, insecurities, anything that most human beings go through, sober or not sober. I try to open that up, but like, wow, he just said that to us. Maybe I can open up and maybe not be judged, and there's just hope. And that's what I like, spreading the message of hope.
That's awesome. Thank you.
I feel the same way as Charles. Same thing. My message is always hope. If you could have seen me 4 years ago, we're literally like just at the 4-year period of when I tried to end my own life, and to now, it's totally different person. And I like, even when I was small, I always felt this desire to want to help people. I never knew it was going to be here, and because it definitely wasn't planning on being this way, but I'm here now, and I feel so unbelievably grateful that I can do that. I'm so grateful that I can share my story, be brave, try to give other people the strength and the courage to do it themselves. The opportunities that have been given to me, like, everything's a gift, and I know that. And while I don't necessarily follow a 12-step program today, the 12-step programs got me to where I am. I just kind of went rogue with my Brene Brown and Glennon Doyle kind of stuff. But
And Course in Miracles.
Course in Miracles, always. But I still, I mean, the fact that I can sit here today, and like my little guy's in the other room, and he's here with me, I don't know. That makes me cry. Yeah, so this is definitely a calling, and it's many people that may sometimes tell me to stop. I'm getting too much. I'm not going to stop, because I think it's really important, and I really want to tell people to always have hope. Always have hope.
Chris, and thank you. And Chris and Kimberly, I think you feel the same thing as well, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, it's Charles, when you were saying, I don't know word for word, but we had a guest on Wednesday, and she said that when she speaks in a room, right, she just wants to make a difference, even if it's just for one person. And she was speaking in a I don't know what the setting was, I don't remember, but whatever she was saying empowered one person to stand up and say, I'm sober for X amount of days, weeks, whatever. And then the next person stood up, and the next person. And by, in a matter of a couple of minutes, there were a lot of people standing up, being proud of who they were and where they are in their journey. And I think, it's people like our last guest, that have lost a child, that are a very strong driving force behind me and what I do. But it's also seeing, and hearing Beth's story of her challenges and how hard she had to fight to get where you are today. And, who cares what people think? Because they're not in your shoes. Charles.
That's how you get in trouble in the first place, when you care about what people think.
Right.
I'm learning.
It's true.
One day at a time.
Exactly.
I think we all do that, though,
Yes.
to some extent. But you
Absolutely.
have to say, I don't really care.
Everyone cares. Everyone
Right.
cares what everyone thinks about them, right? We all want
Right.
to be liked. We all want to be
Debatable.
But at the end of the day, we have to live with ourselves. We're the ones that we have to look at ourselves in the mirror, and we have to be okay with who we are and what we do. If we come from a place of love and not fear, we'll be okay,
Yep.
And you guys are absolutely an inspiration. I love what you do, and thank you so much for
Thank you guys.
inspiring
Thank you.
people that are listening now on the map.
Let me just
Yay.
say, backtrack one thing. You had mentioned a previous guest lost a child. That wasn't actually Senator Friedman. That was
Oh, sorry.
that's okay. That was Michelle Schwartzmeyer, who was on our Wednesday
show.
live
Yeah.
of the map. So
Incredible story.
it could,
Oh, with the eulogy, right?
Yeah.
exactly,
The-
mother
yeah,
daughter's
the
promise.
obituary.
Yep.
Yep.
The obituary. I'm sorry, the obituary, the real obituary. Yep.
Yep.
Kimberly,
That's
sorry
a
to interrupt.
Very moving story.
Okay. So do we have contact information for you guys up? Do we know how to reach both of you?
I think so. We can put it on the page too.
Me and
Is
my
that our
million
show?
names.
That's Stark Fleming. Yeah, your aliases. Love you. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
guys.
Thanks so much.
Have a great
Is it-
weekend.
You
Andy,
too.
Andy, are we good? Is that it for us? Are we?
You tell
We're gonna
me,
sign
Kimberly.
out. We're done. Okay. Thanks again, you guys. We are. Thanks for joining us here. We'll be back again Wednesday live on Facebook at 11. So we will see you then. Till then, thank you for joining us on.
Stay
the
safe,
map.
all.
Be safe.
See ya.
Social distancing.
Social distance.